We're talking track and field with Jim Knoedel, who is the track and field and cross-country coach at University of Illinois Chicago. Jim and I have known each other a long time. I've always been a supporter of Loyola's program, and I guess I got to say I was really sad when Gordon left and went to DePaul, and then you left and went to UIC. But Loyola is a wonderful place, and it's close by, and I got to know you guys as I used to sneak into the gym. And then I got permission to use the gym from, who was the water polo coach? Ralph Erickson. And Loyola, we were talking a little bit earlier about Alumni Hall, and one of the things that's in Alumni Hall that is just a miraculous thing, and I think it's probably not there now or it's drained, was the deep water polo pool.
Yeah, it was very unique because it was 16 feet deep, so they could play water polo in there, and they actually could dive in there too. But it was a great pool, a unique pool, because typically there's a shallow end and a deep end, but this was all deep, and so it was a lot different. And I always think a story I have interesting about that. We had no place to throw the indoor shot when I was there, and we used the balcony of the swimming pool. Well, you can imagine
with
when
nets, I remember up there.
You can imagine when they threw the shot wild where it ended up going. It went in the swimming pool. So our throwers had to dive off the balcony into the swimming pool, to go to the very bottom, get a 16-pound ball, bring it to the top, and if they couldn't get over the side right away, it went all the way back down to the bottom. So that was our practice at Loyola, and that's a lot what it was like.
Jim Knoedel, I first got to know him when he was coaching at Loyola University and as an assistant track and field coach over there. And he moved on to University of Illinois Chicago. He's been there for about 14 years. And he's a track man through and through, comes out of Iowa. And actually, let's tell that little story about well, tell me about your brother. He was a track and field guy. He almost went to the Olympics. When you were kids, you had a high jump set up down at the end of the block on an old dirt road. How did you get interested in track and field?
Well, when we were little, I've got three brothers. We were all very competitive and all very athletic, and we would go through the seasons of sports. But one of the things I always remember about when we were young, we would actually have a decathlon at home, and so we used to create hurdles out of this and that, and we would spade the garden, use that as a long jump pit. We'd also use it as a high jump pit, believe it or not. We'd find anything heavy to throw as a shot. We use any type of stick we could find to throw, but we had decathlons in our yard. We broke many a window at home, and it didn't make my mom very happy, but that's how we got started. But my brother, originally, we started to do a straddle, which is roll over in your stomach, a Western roll, some might say. We did that in the garden. The reason why he did that style was we had no pit to land in, so he had to learn to jump like that. But he started out rather modestly. I think as a sophomore, he only jumped about 5'6", and as a junior, he was about 6 foot. And eventually made 6'8" in high school and 7'4" when he was in college. And at the, I'm trying to think, 70.
He jumped 7'4".
7'4", yeah. So that's, I mean, if you think of the doorway to your rooms, the doorway is 7 feet high. So he's jumping over the frame of that doorway. And many times in competition, warm up, he'd have someone stand underneath the bar and he'd high jump over their head. So it was quite amazing to see. But in '76, he was at the Olympic trials. He finished 6th. If he had jumped 1 inch higher, he would have made the '76 Olympic team. He jumped 7'3" there, and if he had made 7'4", he would have been on the Olympic team, but didn't make it. Still had a good career, was a 2-time All-American, quite an athlete. And it's always hard to believe someone that was your brother who was a lazy bonehead that turned into something that was anything impressive. So it was a good start, but that's where we did it. We just had competitions on our own. We did a lot of the training in our backyard, and that's where we initially learned how to do all that stuff. But it was so much fun to do that. I mean, we all played baseball, football, basketball. We all have a lot of broken bones and fingers and cuts and stitches to show for all that activity, but that's where we all got started.
Who was the first guy to jump 7 feet? John Thomas?
John Thomas, yeah, from Boston.
Yeah, he was the founder of Athletes United for Peace, and along with Phil Shinnick. And I just want to let you all know that Athletes United for Peace did have a wonderful little, it was actually a 2.7 mile race on New Year's Eve in the frigid cold under the full moon. Not a lot of people, but there was a fellow, I don't remember his name, who was one of the second or third in the Chicago Marathon, and he just blew away the rest of the competition. You were talking, you actually talked about your brother just missing the Olympics. You were telling me a little story about a coach at Wright State who is in your conference, and one of the reasons that I bring that up is because I had asked you to talk to me a little bit about, we were during the break, about the state of track and field in Chicago. Why don't you first tell us about that, what you think the state of track and field is, and then maybe share that story about the coach at Wright State.
Well, you know, it's frustrating because many years ago, I'd say 25 years ago, the city of Chicago had some of the best athletes, best track athletes in the nation. It was a great programs in the city schools. And over that interim, it's gradually deteriorated along with the facilities and some of the opportunities that the athletes have had. And it's been very frustrating to see. And you're starting to see a resurgence. And I had hoped along with this resurgence, you would see the Olympics come into Chicago. That's one of the things that I really felt would have helped Chicago running and track and field in general if we had gotten Olympics, and we didn't.
Now it's going to be in Sao Paulo. They're going to have.
Yeah.
They're going to turn out the athletes.
Well, and you know, I honestly wonder how that's going to be pulled off. I mean, we're seeing a lot of problems already with some of the drugs there and some of the gunfire, and I know it's making it questionable whether they'll be able to pull it off. But at that point in time, it's going to be too late for Chicago, and that's the frustrating thing.
Jim Knoedel, tell us about the coach at Wright State, because you were talking when I asked you about the state of track and field in Chicago. You basically had talked about people. Just you mentioned this coach at Wright State who is doesn't get a lot of recognition. People don't seem to know it. Maybe it's not a question of track and field in Chicago, but track and field maybe in the country. It's like doesn't have the popularity that it does in Europe.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting story because I think a lot of people have heard of Billy Mills, and he's an American Indian who was 10,000 meter champion in Tokyo in the 1964 Olympics. He came from behind, and it's been a big story, even a movie about his life and his success as he went on. But in that same Olympics, in a 5,000 meter race, Americans got first and third. I think a lot of people might remember the third place finisher was Bill Dellinger, who coached Steve Prefontaine in college. But the winner, the Olympic gold medalist, was Bob Scholl. And that's a name that I would bet I could ask 100 college coaches.
I confess, I never heard of him.
100 college coaches, and maybe one or two might even know who he is. But this was the last Olympic gold medalist in the 5,000 for the United States. That was in 1956. 1960, sorry. 1964, I'll get it right yet.
You're getting close.
1964. But Bob Scholl is the coach at Wright State University, very humble guy, tremendously talented athlete that came off a farm in Ohio, was asthmatic as a young kid, never thought he'd be an athlete at all, and he ended up being an Olympic gold medalist in the 5K. So there's a name, he's written a book too, but there's a name, Bob Scholl, that I challenge anyone to any track person with a background, challenge them to even know that he was an Olympic gold medalist.